Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 262. Today we are talking all about why play matters so much in your parenting and your homeschooling. Whether your kids are itty bitty teeny tiny tots or teens or even young adults, play matters so much. Having fun with your kids, going on adventures with them, and just enjoying a playful attitude at home can go so far and build so many shared connections and memories throughout your life, and it will last a lifetime with your kids. So this is going to be a fun episode. If you haven't had a chance to check out The Homeschool Advantage, a child-focused approach to raising lifelong learners, check it out wherever books are sold, and let me know what you think. I am so proud of that new book, and I can't wait for everybody to get their hands on it. So check it out. And I also want to give out a special shout out to CTC Math, our sponsor for this episode. We appreciate them so much. So check them out at ctcmath.com and pop those earbuds in. Let's get on with today's episode. Okay, so I've talked about play before on the podcast, and I've mentioned it in the last two episodes, so I wanted to devote a whole episode to it. In fact, in my new book, The Homeschool Advantage, a child-focused approach to raising lifelong learners, there is an entire chapter devoted to play. I've also talked about play on the podcast with a couple guests. I will make sure that I link to those past episodes in the show notes for this episode so that you have all the resources that you need. But let's just talk about it. Play is important. It's important across all ages in parenting, but especially when we're homeschooling as well, because like I said a couple episodes ago, parenting is hard. Parenting's a lot of work. It's a lot of juggling, and homeschooling is parenting on steroids because now you've got all the parenting responsibilities in the house, responsibilities that you normally have, and you're responsible for the education. We want to make sure that we are really focused on the importance of what we're doing. And the importance of what we're doing really is igniting that lifelong love of learning in our kids and keeping those individual kids at the forefront of our mind, the why of our homeschooling, why we're doing it. And probably for most of us, some part of our why relates to loving our kids so much. We want what's best for them, and we believe that this is what's best for them. When we take on the role of homeschooling parent, and all of the stuff that goes along with that, for the goal of doing what's best for our kids and what's right for them, we want to make sure that it's not a chore and a drudgery for all of us. And so we want to make sure that we are incorporating play or playfulness, at least, into everything that we do. Years ago, I ordered a bunch of mealworms. This was before we had reptiles that needed to eat them, but we were doing an insect, like a basic insect unit study, and I ordered caterpillars and ladybug larvae and all the different things. And I ordered some mealworms, and a bunch came. Like, this box of mealworms was way more than I was expecting. We decided to raise them, keep a little mealworm farm for a while so we could watch the life cycle happen. And we did a lot of different experiments to study the mealworms and then the beetles that came from them. And I wrote about some of that in a book years ago called 100 Backyard Activities That Are the Dirtiest, the Coolest, the Creepy Crawliest Ever. And so we did those experiments and a bunch of others. And one of the things that we did was create a maze and a choice container where the mealworms could go one way or the other depending on what they were seeking. Was it dark or light? Was it sour or sweet? Was it whatever? And years later, I found one of my kids who was much older than you would expect to be playing with blocks, playing with some of our old blocks and mag formers and building them up into this intricate maze. And I was like, what are you doing? And she was creating a maze the giant African millipede we currently have to go through. And the experimentation we did all those years ago still stuck in the back of her mind. And she was studying this millipede and watching it, and decided to bring out the old play blocks and build this maze for this millipede. And it was very cool, actually, watching it try to figure its way out. You never know when play can lead to unexpected learning. We learned actually a lot about that millipede, the way that it was navigating its surroundings and going up on some of its legs so it could sense. We don't know quite if it was like smelling or if it was like moving its antenna to get some sound input, but its eyes were looking all around and its antenna were flexing and its feet were in the air. It was so interesting, but it was very playful and unexpected and not part of a lesson. But we learned a lot about animal behavior and how animals problem solve and this specific species. Play is crucial for kids of all ages, not just the little ones. It helps develop critical thinking skills, creativity, problem solving, and social and emotional skills, which is especially important for our neurodivergent kiddos. Play can fit into homeschooling, like we talked about briefly last week, by finding something playful in each of the things that we're doing, or in each day, not necessarily each of the things that we're doing, so we can embrace just enjoying the time that we're with our kids, right? Play is the brain's favorite way to learn. Studies show time and time again that kids retain more information through hands-on playful learning than passive instruction. And play doesn't need to be play, what we picture when we think of kids playing. It's not necessarily just the blocks or the running around a playground or playing a board game. Playfulness is play too. So some kids like to debate. That's playful to them. They like to come up with arguments and think critically about things, problem solve. They like to solve puzzles. They like to argue, debate. They like to have just deep conversations, thoughtful ones. They to play games and make flashcards and things like that. This can be incorporated all through lifetime, but playfulness and encouraging the dialogue back and forth is a much, much better and stronger form of education and leads to better retention than just passive instruction. Play can also be a gateway for our neurodivergent kiddos who might struggle with traditional learning methods. If you've got a kiddo who has a learning challenge like dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia, playful learning can be an easier way for their brain to latch on to more difficult concepts. So if we're talking about dysgraphia, maybe you're playing with calligraphy and calligraphy pens or other forms of handwriting to break them out of the struggle that they're having or to give them an alternate way to do things. Maybe for our dyscalculia kids, we're playing games, we're playing flashcards, they're doing video games online. My oldest used to play the leapfrog learning games when he was young. Now, mind you, he's 21, so we're talking like 15 years ago. But any of those video games that can be beneficial to them and allows them to engage on their own terms and at their own pace. There's lots of different types of play that we can incorporate and playfulness we can incorporate into our family and our homeschool. There's structured play, board games, organized sports, card games, family game nights, video games. There's unstructured play, free play, imaginative play, exploration, joining and finding hobbies. Both types support learning in unique ways. The free play allows our imagination to soar. It allows us to make connections to things and between things that are seemingly unrelated. Structured play can help us review concepts, problem solve, think critically, strategize. They all help us learn in different ways. But it's important to remember that play doesn't end in early childhood. A lot of times, and I know it's hard, when we're homeschooling our kids, we want to set them up for success, and we start to feel as they get older and older, and I'm guilty of this too. I have a 21-year-old whom I've graduated already. I have a 17-year-old who is in her senior year. I have a 15-year-old who is just starting high school, and I have an 11-year-old. It feels more real as they get older because it feels like it counts more. But the truth of the matter is homeschooling is just the next thing. It's the next grade and the next grade and the next grade, and we can do all of it. There are different things play does for us at different ages throughout our life. When our kids are young, early childhood, preschool, preschool, we're building their foundations through play. In the early years, like roughly ages 0 to 5, right? Play is the primary method through which kids are learning about their world. Sensory play, building play, imaginative play supports their cognitive development. It grows their motor skills. It helps them acquire language. It improves their social and emotional development because they learn how to navigate emotions. They learn how to develop empathy. They build social skills through activities like role playing or sharing toys. When our kids are little, we can incorporate early play or play into their early childhood homeschooling, like setting up sensory bins, making Play-Doh, using dress up for role play, act out historical events. I remember a time when my kids didn't want to stop learning about ancient Egypt because they were finding all sorts of things to role play. They were mummifying their dolls and sending them off to the afterlife with plastic fruit and coins and things from around the house. And when they were studying Vikings, they made Viking bread and did all sorts of read alouds and video watching and things like that. In fact, really off topic slightly story, I have a recipe for Viking bread that we had developed together through piecing together different recipes online and testing things out because they wanted to eat like the Vikings did. And of course, it's not exactly like the Vikings made it because we live in the 21st century and we're not going to be catching our yeast in the air or whatever. But it's close to roughly what they would have eaten back then. In any case, it was the idea of it and the immersion of it that was more than anything. But this Viking bread recipe on my website is consistently one of my top searched posts. I get more traffic to that post than any other over the course of a year. For some reason, the algorithms and SEO decided that Raising Lifelong Learners was the expert on Viking bread. And anytime anyone is searching Viking recipes or Viking bread or Viking time periods, they end up on my site, which has led to some interesting things. Way back when blogs were more bloggy and dialogue-y and comments were open, they're more website-ish now. I would get some really interesting comments on those posts, which were like fun actually and playful and taught me a lot about the dynamics of people. Those hardcore historical enactors did not like my recipe at all because it wasn't authentic enough. And then I would get homeschool families, moms, thank you very much, all of you, who would go in and defend me in the comments. She's teaching her kids in a hands-on way. This is a good thing. Even if it's not perfectly authentic, it still gets kids excited about the time period and makes them retain information. It was just so interesting to see the dialogue there. But it also goes to show that you need play all the way through adulthood, playing with recipes, creating them, going and reenacting historical time periods and becoming a Viking for the day, and then being so passionate about it that you want to fight back against the mom blogger who's making inaccurate Viking bread with her kids. And then the discourse that happens as people see the injustice of that and fight back. It's great. You never know what's going to come out of those things. But there's lots of stuff you can do with your kids when they're little to help them stick with a topic or deep dive into it or just play with it for a while. So if you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about CTC Math for the last couple of years. They have been supportive sponsors of the podcast, and as I've told you before, I'm a customer. My kids use CTC Math in their homeschool. I am a paying subscriber and have been for a number of years, even before CTC sponsored the podcast. I am a raving fan, and I will continue talking about their resources and their program until long after I'm done homeschooling, because I think it's really versatile for so many different types of families, whether your kids are super strong in an area or super weak in an area of math. It allows you to customize their education when it comes to math. I've talked to so many families over the years, but I want to share with you a message that I received from Sandy, a longtime listener who was content in what they were using until, again, they weren't, and they switched over to CTC Math based on a recommendation that they'd heard on the podcast. Sandy writes, "We too started using CTC Math following your recommendation, Colleen. One of my sons is so dedicated. Then, after watching over his shoulder, my other son started using it too. They both now do an hour each workday by choice. I even enjoy it myself. I do the lessons with them, which is a handy brush up, and will occasionally do some of the algebra lessons ahead of time. Math was not my strong suit in school, but now I love it, and I wish the program had been available in the 80s. Too many people think they're terrible at math, but I truly believe we all just need a method of learning that suits us. CTC Math seems to work for all three of us." So check out ctcmath.com or go to the link over in the show notes for this episode and click on it to go over there and see the offer that they have for podcast listeners. You don't have to just take my word for it. You can take Sandy's as well. CTC is a great program and could be a wonderful benefit for your homeschool. All right, let's get back to today's episode. As our kids get a little bit older, let's talk like elementary years. They're bigger kids and they feel bigger. They're trying to find their own way, but play is still really crucial for their learning in their elementary years. It supports problem solving, teamwork, creativity. Games and play-based learning activities can reinforce concepts like math, reading, and science in a fun and engaging way. It's why classroom teachers often use these strategies to reinforce or review skills before tests and things like that, because it's really helpful for the kids to learn it in that way. And we can emulate that at home. We can do that in our own homeschool. Creative play, imaginative play like storytelling or building forts or inventing games help kids develop abstract thinking and follow through and project planning. So we could easily weave some of those ideas into our homeschool, have them build a lean-to in the backyard, like the person in the survival story they're reading, build models, create board games or just play board games for math, do scavenger hunts that teach observation and critical thinking. So many fun things you can do to reinforce concepts or to bring a playfulness to your learning in the elementary years. As our kids get into the tween and teen years, it often feels like we should stop being playful and be more serious, but I would argue that it's even more important because play doesn't stop when kids hit double digits. It just looks different. For tweens and teens, play can take the form of creative projects, strategic games, more deep strategic games, physical activities, hobbies, any kind of exploration can be playful. Video gaming, that debate I was talking about, the arguing, the discussions, playfulness, all of this helps reduce stress, build deeper social connections, and helps them develop leadership and problem-solving skills. Strategy games like chess, Dungeons and Dragons, video games can help them develop skills in planning and strategy and decision-making, which has long-term benefits as our kids are starting to pull away from us and make their own way. Physical play, like sports, dance, or outdoor activities, provide an outlet for energy and a way to build teamwork and resilience. And then exploratory play, like coding, woodworking, the crocheting class my daughter is taking now, designing video games. They can blend fun and learning for teens and possibly help them discover their future. Maybe they're just messing around with some coding or designing, and they end up falling in love with it and discovering a passion. My oldest was playing around with photography and videography, and he has found a passion and has built a freelance career with it. So you never know where the play is going to take the kids, but in the teen years, it just starts to look different. Play supports all different aspects of our lives: academic, emotional, mindset, social. But I think that the social and emotional learning that comes from play is especially important for our neurodivergent kids. It builds and strengthens emotional intelligence. And I've written a lot about emotional intelligence. I'll link to some of it in the show notes, including a book I published a couple years ago, Ulysses Press, Raising Resilient Sons, A Boy Mom's Guide to Building a Strong, Confident, and Emotionally Intelligent Family. It's a book focused through the lens of raising boys, but it really has application to your whole family. Role-playing, board games, cooperative activities all help our kids learn to manage their emotions, practice empathy, and understand different perspectives. This all plays into building and strengthening emotional intelligence. For our neurodivergent kids, especially, social play can help them develop important skills like turn taking, reading social cues, understanding body language. And it's a low pressure environment, this social play, especially for kiddos who struggle with social interactions. It's one of the reasons I like theater so much for our neurodivergent or kind of quirky kids, because it helps them in a low pressure, there's definitely stress, but it's a cooperative, collaborative stress, allows them a gateway into their social interactions because everybody on that stage and in that rehearsal has a shared goal, a shared vision. Play can also be therapeutic. It can be a way for kids to process emotions, whether through their imaginative play, their physical outlets like rough and tumble play, which can be really helpful for kids who have sensory needs or ADHD. Getting some of that out through their physicality is important. Some really nitty-gritty practical things we can do to incorporate more play at any age in our homeschool. For young kids, you can create learning centers, hands-on activities, pull out the building blocks, the sensory play like sensory bins that I talked about earlier, dress up areas. You can use playful storytelling to teach language and communication skills and to just have conversations with them. When your kids get to about elementary age, you can start incorporating learning games, although you could do this earlier too. You can use math, card games, scavenger hunts, creative art challenges. You can allow them to build projects that allow for exploration, science experiments, building models, things like that. For our tweens and teens, you can use more strategy games, chess, cooperative board games, escape room kits to encourage problem solving. You can encourage physical play with your teens and tweens, hiking, biking, organizing group sports, explore hobbies as a form of play, whether it's coding or creating art or building something hands-on. And then as a family, you can incorporate game nights, outdoor adventures, creative projects like building something together or writing a story as a family. This past month in the Learners Lab, one of our activities, because we were talking about incorporating or instilling a love of learning in our family, one of the activities that the kids did, the families did in their EQ quest, their social and emotional learning quest, was to create a family newspaper or newsletter and share it with other family members or friends, or just share it with each other. Collaboratively write about things that they were doing. And this was really exciting for them. You could do things as a whole family. Go on outdoor adventures, build something together, write a family story, create a family newsletter, play together. A lot of times we think we don't have time for play, but we're never too busy to incorporate playfulness into our day. Simple play activities can just take a few minutes, but still offer big benefits. You could add in jokes, see who can make somebody laugh first. So everybody collect some jokes to bring to the lunch table, and whoever laughs first is out, and you keep going around the table. You can find little interesting and unique creative ways to incorporate it. For those who think that we need to be productive all the time and play seems unproductive, it's really a misconception. Play is not a waste of time. It's not non-educational. There's research that shows play fosters critical thinking, problem solving, emotional intelligence, and so much more. And even if it didn't do all those things, it strengthens connections within your family unit. And you cannot undervalue the connections that you build with one another, because your family is it. It's the core. It's who you all have all the time. And so you want to make sure that you're strengthening that core as often as you can. You might have kids who resist play. There are some kids who don't want to do the fun thing you're offering. They just want to get stuff done, or they just want to do their own thing. Just keep offering, keep reintroducing ideas, keep being playful, and just make sure that it's safe and fun for them. And if they don't want to do it, it's not the hill you need to die on. You just keep offering other opportunities and other examples of play to help them find a way to be involved. Okay, remember, when you're trying to incorporate play, there is a reason. It supports learning, social and emotional development, creativity, and when you embrace it, even if it looks different from your expectations, you're modeling for your kids resilience and perseverance, and that it's okay to just let go and enjoy. I have another challenge for you this week. Try adding one new playful activity into your homeschool routine, whether it's a game, an outdoor adventure, or creative project. See how your kiddo responds. Reflect on that and think about what you can do the next time and keep adding those things in as much as you can. Share how it's going. Post, hey, we tried this today. It was so much fun. You should try it, and tag me on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, or shoot me a message. Email me through the contact form on the website or send me a voicemail. I'd love to hear about it. But if you do tag me, make sure, or if you do share on social media, make sure you tag me so I can check it out. But you never know where that's going to lead. So it could be super fun and exciting for you and your kids, and get everybody that connection that you want together. I'll share over on the show notes for this episode at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast links to resources about incorporating play into your homeschool and to all the other podcast episodes I've done that relate to this topic, along with some great books and game ideas that you might like to take a look at. We've got some great episodes coming up on the podcast. We're going to dive deep into some more of the topics that are in the new book and just tangible, practical ways that you can infuse a love of learning in your homeschool, playfulness, and keep focused on the child that's in front of you so that you can thrive. No matter how your kids and your brains are wired, you've got this. You're the absolute best parent for your kid. Therefore, you're the absolute best teacher for your kid. You can absolutely do. But remember, learning through play isn't just for kids. It's a way to keep that spark of curiosity and joy alive at every stage. When learning is fun, it becomes a lifelong journey, and you build so many shared connections with your family, and that's what this is all about. Family is the center of everything we do, and this gives you one more tangible thing to do to grow that link and that connection. I hope you have a great week. Special thanks to CTC Math for continuing to sponsor this podcast. We appreciate them so much. Check them out. If you're looking for a fabulous math program, let them know I sent you. And we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Over this next week, enjoy your kids. Have fun, play, and take advantage of this thing we call homeschooling. Be present with your kids and enjoy them. I will talk to you soon. Have a great week. Bye for now.